Welcome to another episode of It Had to Be Said podcast, where we say out loud what you think in private. No topic is off limits. In today's podcast, we're going to be talking about the Stefon Diggs case, and the verdict is in, ladies and gentlemen. He is found not guilty. Now, for those of us who watched the case or followed the case, we could have told by the first day that there was something wrong with her case, and she may not have a case at all. By the second day, Stefon Diggs' defense team, they rested their case, and within 2 hours, the jury came back and said he was found not guilty. Now, a lot of people were kind of confused and trying to figure out like what was going on and how did this whole situation play out. So let me kind of give you guys a quick rundown as far as why this even went to trial, even though they had very little to no evidence. And I'm just going to summarize this, right? So, the young lady that sued him, we're going to call her the BBL chef because that's what the internet refers to her as. All right. So the personal chef, which is the BBL chef, she basically filed a report saying that she was slapped and strangled by him. The police officers then take that report and gives it to the district attorney, which is the DA. The district attorney looks at it and says, we have enough evidence to move forward with a trial. Right. And then they go forward with the trial. For those of us who actually watched the trial, we see that the district attorney had no evidence. And in fact, the witness that they had, she was lying. She hid certain information, pieces of information like text messages. She lied about not being paid and trying to get extra money. And what I want people to understand is this. When you're going to trial, because remember, this happened back in December and we're now going to trial, right? That's basically like 6 months later. What happens in a situation like this is once you decide to go to trial, the defense legal team, which is Stefon's team, they gather as much evidence as they can. And the district attorney, they gather as much evidence as they can. Now, once they gather their information, their evidence, they have to share it with each other. So the district attorney knows what Stefon Diggs' legal team has, and Stefon Diggs' legal team knows what the district attorney has. And this is before they even go to trial. So you would sit there and say, well, why would the district attorney still move forward with this case when they saw that she deleted certain text messages, she lied about not being paid, there is no evidence of any kind of physical abuse, and the famous dance that she was doing while she was like a couple days after she supposedly got slapped, and that there was no one who can corroborate her story that she got choked out and slapped. And not only that, she actually ended up giving him a birthday gift after, like minutes after being slapped, and she refused to move out of the house. So it was all these evidence and all these pieces of things there that makes you say, why would the district attorney still move forward with this case? Obviously, there's no evidence and there's no chance that they can win this case. Now, remember, the district attorney's job is not to win case. The district attorney's job is to prosecute cases that are prosecutable, meaning if there's evidence and the evidence shows that this person was guilty of a crime, they move forward. If there's no evidence, they don't move forward with the case. But what you're finding now is that a lot of these district attorneys, and I'm not saying all, but there's a good amount of them that are really ambitious and they want to become mayors, governors, or run for higher office. Even though they know they may not have a case, if it's a celebrity that's involved, they have a tendency of trying to take the case and take it to trial because it's going to give them a platform. And they're going to use that celebrity as a stepping stone because they may only be known in their city. But if they're prosecuting a celebrity, they may be known in the entire state or maybe even nationwide. A good example of this would be the DA from Georgia, from Atlanta. When she decided to go after Donald Trump, not only was she known nationwide, she was known internationally, and that gained her a lot of fame until it backfired on her because she apparently put her boyfriend in charge of the case, which I thought was one of the most dumbest, ridiculous, most stupidest things I've ever seen or heard. Okay. But enough about that. I'm going to just go back to the Stefon Diggs case. So you look at stuff like this and you say, well, that is kind of crazy. Like, shouldn't there be certain rules or things that prevent them from doing that? And in my honest opinion, I think that there should be. I think that there needs to be something put in place to say, well, in a case like this one, where it's obvious that they didn't have enough evidence, the DA should be held accountable, not only legally, but also financially, for moving forward with a case they know they had no evidence in, because it seems like this case was moved forward either for political pressure, for his own personal gain, right? So that's just one part of it, right? Now, the other part about it is during the trial, Stefon Diggs' attorneys mentioned that her legal team approached him and asked for $5.5 million to recant their statement to close out the case. And he offered about $100,000, right? Now, you would sit there and say, well, why would you offer $100,000 if you did not do anything? Obviously, you paid because you're guilty, right? And that's not always the case. You got to understand something. This guy, he's now a free agent. His team cut him. They didn't want him anymore after this thing became public. He has endorsement deals. It's going to really heavily affect them, right? I mean, nobody really cared about who he was outside of football until he started dating Cardi B and got her pregnant, right? So you have to think about this. If this goes to trial, this guy is going to be known as the guy who was paying his chef who could not cook to, and he was sleeping with her. He was sleeping with this other person that was on his payroll, and he was messing around with this. So a lot of his personal information is going to come out, which could affect his opportunities to get on other teams. It can affect his endorsement deals, if he wants future endorsement deals, even though he didn't do anything, and he's going to be found innocent. Even though he's going to be found innocent, the public relations part of it and his personal information coming out, it could affect him long term. It could also affect his kids and his family. So this man made a decision that he was willing to pay $100,000 just to, get rid of the case. You see, and this is what happens with a lot of public figures, and this is why public figures are such easy targets when it comes down to domestic violence or sexual assault charges. There was a show that's on, I believe, NBC or CNBC or MSNBC. It's called American Greed, right? And there was a case where, they talk about a guy, he was well off, like multi-millionaire business guy, CEO, and he was going through a divorce with his ex-wife. And his ex-wife made allegations that he was messing around with his children. He basically sexually assaulted his children, and so he literally was like, I'm willing to pay her whatever she wants for this divorce, just so we don't go to court, because even if I'm found innocent, I'm going to be guilty in the court of public opinion, and it could affect my business, it could affect my family. So at one point, he was so embarrassed. He said, I'd rather just give her what she wants than have to deal with this. Eventually, they found evidence to show that he never did that, and whatever the case may be. But this is what you have to deal with when you're a public figure, right? I saw a lot of videos after the verdict where people were talking about, this is going to be devastating for real victims, because next time, something like this happens and it's a real victim, it's something that actually happened to someone, nobody's going to want to believe them. People are going to be sitting back and just waiting for the case and waiting for all the evidence. Nobody's just going to jump to their defense. And at one point I said, you know what? Yeah, that's right. That's so sad. But then I kind of being the analytical thinker I am, I was like, hold up. This is America. Our justice system goes, you're innocent until proven guilty, right? But just like I've said in previous podcasts, there's a double standard between men and women. Men and women are never treated the same. When it comes down to domestic violence or sexual assault, it's kind of like there's no you're innocent until proven guilty. If a woman, make an accusation against you, especially if you're a celebrity, it's kind of like, hey, you're guilty and you got to prove your innocence, right? So I started thinking, with all these cases that happened, especially involving a lot of celebrities, you got like the Pete Diddy situation, you have this guy's situation, and then you also have the baseball player. He had $100 million deal. I think it was like Trevor something, where, these fake allegations of sexual assault was made against them. And, these guys, everybody was like, yo, you're guilty until you're proven innocent. And these guys lost millions of dollars. They lost their businesses. They lost contracts. They lost endorsement deals. I started thinking, no, maybe these girls coming out and lying and saying this stuff and being caught in their lies, maybe it's a good thing. Maybe we can get back to the American justice system that we're supposed to have, which is somebody makes an accusation against you, you're innocent until proven guilty. If somebody says you committed domestic violence or sexually assaulted someone, okay, the public needs to sit back and we need to wait for all the evidence to come out. And then we wait for the trial, and then we make a decision after all of that has been presented and the trial has been made. There is no reason why we should be saying somebody's automatically guilty just because you're a man or just because you're a woman, right? This is the way the American justice system should be working and how it should be operating. So whether or not these women coming out and making these false allegations against celebrities or against men in general, whether it's going to help, maybe it might just help us get back to the norm. There was a case that just happened a couple weeks ago where there was a employee for, I believe is Chase, JP Morgan, and a guy employee, he made an allegations against a female executive saying that he was being sexually harassed. And JP Morgan decided to stand behind this female executive and sure, because that's not something that normally happens. Where a female executive is harassing a male, it's not the norm. It's normally, the guy's the one doing it, right? And it's a whole nother story. But this is what I think. I think, yes, I do think female executives or female bosses do harass their male employees if they find them attractive. The only difference is a male employee is actually going to enjoy it because he's going to benefit in two ways. He's going to benefit because he's going to get that physical interaction. Plus, he's going to get the financial means from it as well. So what's the reason for him to complain? Whereas a female employee being harassed by a male boss, she has a tendency of complaining because she has to give up the physical interactions. And in most cases, she doesn't get a financial gain. She just gets to keep her job, So, so women will complain more than the men, unfortunately. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say unfortunately, but that's just the way it is, right? So I do think female executives do harass the males. It's just that there's no reason for us to complain. Now back to the story of this this story of the Chase executive. So when Chase decided to stand behind a female executive, they came to find out that the male employee, he had lied, and he admitted that he lied because he just wanted to get a quick payday. He just wanted the financial gain without having to necessarily work so hard. And he figured, hey, you know what? If I make the allegations, I'm going to get paid. And this is a man saying that, right? And how many women do we see they go after high value to high target men, and they do the exact same thing. Now, this brings me to another part of this podcast, which is I believe anyone that makes a false claim against a person and that person can possibly serve jail time, I think the person that made the false claim should spend that amount of time in jail. Like, for example, with the Stefon Diggs situation, if he was supposed to serve 5 years in prison if found guilty, she should have to serve those 5 years. I think that's just how it should be as far as the law, because if you don't start holding people accountable and punishing them for the things that they do, then, situations like this are going to constantly happen, I mean, but that's all I really have to say in regards to that. In regards to that, I'm trying not to blabber on too much because this podcast is going on a little bit longer. But I will close this out with one final piece of advice. As human beings, as a man or as a woman, we have a particular type of person that we're attracted to, right? But you also have to sit there and say, based on where you're at in your life and the direction that you want to go, is this the right person for you to even mess around with? I'm not talking about be your boyfriend or be your girlfriend or for you to marry. I'm just talking about in general, just to even sleep with them. Is it even worth it, right? Like, there are certain people you can get involved with and you can just tell, like, if you have them around you or they're in your circle, they're not gonna add, they're just gonna take away, and they're gonna become a liability. You know, like there's certain traits or features that I'm attracted to as a man, but most of the women that have those features or those traits, they have liabilities that come along with them. And so therefore, you know, I have to be very careful and very disciplined to say, it's just not worth it. You know, no matter how much I might want it, it's just not worth it. And so I think this particular trial and this particular case goes to show where this man is a athlete. He's famous. He's making money. And you can see a woman like that and you can, you know, you're already willing to pay for it. You already showed that you're willing to pay for it. But it's a woman that you may want to meet and just say, hey, you know what? You have a good time with it at one time. You pay her for her services and you move on. It's not somebody you necessarily want to keep around in your circle. You want to put in your house. You want to, you know, keep around you because, you know, the mindset is just not there, you know. And I hope he learns from this. And I wish him all the best. And yeah, that's basically it for this podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great night. Thank you for listening and supporting my podcast. I would love to hear your thoughts on this particular episode. You can leave a comment on whatever platform you're listening to my podcast on. If there's a topic or viral video you'd like for me to cover, you can DM me on Instagram at It Had to Be Said Podcast. I post new episodes Tuesday and Thursday at 5 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ladies and gentlemen, good night.
Now, at McDonald's, wake up to a $4 breakfast meal deal. Wake up to a sausage McMuffin or a sausage biscuit, to hash browns, and wake up to a hot coffee. Get your $4 breakfast meal deal.
Limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher for delivery.